Really, Scott?
I'm dabbing.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, I got a floss, right?
This is a new experience for us. Hey.
Hey guys, can you hear me all right?
Yep, we can hear you, Matt. All right.
Hey, Paulie, how are ya? Paulie, how about you shave once in a while? You think it's a quarantine or something?
Wow, this is quite an intro. Scott,
my kids, it's my kids.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, this is my buddy Matt Bedwick from Alesong out in Eugene. This is George. You see me. Jason is top right, and then our buddy Scott.
Awesome. Nice to meet y'all.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Matt.
Absolutely. So, hey, Matt, before we get started, Jason, do you want to run down our usual intro stuff?
Absolutely do. Yes. Welcome to A Nice Place to Brew. I'm Jason.
And I'm George.
And this is A Nice Place to Brew. This is our Thursday webcast. We do our webcast every Monday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. We have a website, www.aniceplacetobrew.com. We have social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Nice Place to Brew and A Nice Place to Brew. And we have a podcast at A Nice Place to Brew on all the major podcasting platforms. So check us out there. And today we have a special guest. We have Matt from Alesong Brewing from Oregon. So we've got all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, literally, for today's webcast. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So if I can ask one question to kind of get this started, and I looked at your website, Matt, before we jumped on here. Your about page on your website is maybe the best about page I've ever seen on a brewery's website.
Ooh, okay.
Just look at this. We approach brewing like a musician composes a song. Each beer begins with an inspiration from nature, food, or an unforgettable experience. Production is patient, personal, and reflective. The vision evolves until it is brought to life in the glass. Like a song, each beer is an expression, but the enjoyment and interpretation is yours. Cheers. Now, that should speak to Scott. It is very deep, and we have here on as part of the show today, we have a music teacher and musician in Scott. So that certainly speaks to us in a big way.
Well, some of that might be a lot of marketing BS, perhaps. But,
nonetheless, I give him a world of credit. It sounds fantastic.
Well, we do believe it.
BS.
We do believe it, and we really do. And Paul can vouch for me here when brewing and making beer is artistic, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it like that. And I really feel that way. There's a lot of science behind it too, but we approach it like a musician does, and that creativity is what we thrive on. And everyone asks, where did the name Alesong come from? And it came from that, but really the name Alesong came about, and we had to explain Alesong, so that's why it's a little marketing addition there.
Right on. And all the beers that you guys make at Alesong Brewing is all barrel aged, correct?
Yeah. We have a very different brewery model where everything is aged in oak. And we do both wild and sour beers, and we also do bourbon barrel-aged beers, and anything else too. We do gin, tequila, rum. We just explore oak-aged beers.
Don't shout, guys. Just don't shout.
Sorry about that. We have some kids running around.
My fault. My fault.
Can you talk a little bit about where the inspiration came to be a brewery specialized directly in those types of beers?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're coming through just fine.
I'm realizing there's some extra noise in the brewery that I could go to a different room and try cancel out. If you can hear me okay.
There's a little bit of... We can hear you fine, but there is a little bit of extra noise coming through. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
Well, to answer your question, I tell you what. Let me do this. If you guys don't mind waiting 1 second.
Sure, no problem.
It will only take me 15 seconds to move.
Okay. While he's doing that, do you guys have any first round beers you're drinking?
Ah, yes, we can't forget that.
You know what? Let me go get that.
Look at that. That's quite the brewery. All right.
Now, I haven't opened this yet, but Jason, what kind of glass am I looking for on this?
It's an Irish red, 5%.
Gotcha. Okay.
Take a pick.
Man, you just gave it away. All right.
I didn't think it was a secret.
He had to guess at mine a little bit, so.
Oh, okay, all right.
All right. I'm just going straight up, shaker pint.
Okay.
You know what? I'll go
Shaker
no
pint.
name.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. Is a shaker as well.
Yeah, shaker pint.
Yeah.
All right.
Doctor Who themed shaker pint. All right. Hey, Matt. All right, there you go.
Sorry about
Got
that.
my
It's all good. All good. Do you have a beer going,
No
Matt?
worries.
Yes, you
There's
do. What do
that,
you got?
I do. This is a Czech Pilsner from a brewery here in Eugene. It's called Home Fire, and they're about 4 years old. They do mostly draft on site, but they also do a lot of cans here in Oregon. They're just in the state. They're a great brewery, though. Make a lot of great IPAs, as many people do out here. But they're good friends of mine, and we have a keg of theirs in our cooler, so I tapped into that.
Okay.
Plus, I was working outside today. I know I have a Czech Pilsner. We're going to talk barrel-aged beer, but I was working outside in the sun, and it was about 80 degrees today, so this tastes good.
Needed a
All
good
right.
lawnmower beer. I get it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So am I not opening Jason's yet? Should I get something else first?
I opened.
Yeah. What? You open Jason's? All right. I guess
did.
we're opening Jason's.
Yeah.
So, Matt, something that we
So
do
bad.
sometimes, and you're gonna be able to experience it this time too, is we send each other our beer in what we call snow globes, and so we try it on air and give suggestions or say what we think of what's going on. So Polly, Scott, and I all have Jason's latest, which is an Irish Red. Jason, do you want to speak to the beer at all?
Well, first I will speak to my mailing skills or lack thereof, because one of the boxes was a beer short, and that just happened to be. Yes, exactly. I'm calling this out. So both Scott, George, and Polly were sent 2 snow globes of my Irish Red Ale, or at least what I had designed to be an Irish Red Ale. It's a 5%, and unfortunately, in Polly's case, he opened a box which had 1 full bottle and 1 empty bottle.
Oh, no.
Yes, exactly. So I'm sure there was a mess to clean up, and then. And he was quick to point out, it's like, Jason, you paid a lot of money to send me 1 beer, especially when you live less than an hour from me. And he's 100% right. This is not my greatest decision ever. So
Yeah.
But anyways, to me, I feel it's a beer that's very. Hey, what's going on? I think it's a beer that's very much to the Irish Red style, and I certainly invite your guys' feedback and let me know what you think.
So you said it's 5%. I'm not getting a whole lot of alcohol off of it, so that's good, nice and sessionable. The head,
like the color.
at least in my beer, did disappear pretty quickly as far as like head retention.
Carapils.
Same.
That's what does it for me.
Yeah.
4 ounces of Carapils in every batch.
Yeah, what I'm saying though is I don't think
that.
I don't think the Carapils did it for you this time around. I think it
It's slightly undercarbed. Is it beer gunned?
Yeah, it's beer gunned.
yeah.
I mean, it's slightly undercarbed, but what can you do?
Yeah, but as far as the flavor, super malt forward, nice and little bit of sweetness on there that you want with an Irish Red, and you do get a little bit of that hop character just to balance it out. So I think it's a good effort, good, like you said, good representation of an Irish Red, and it looks like from this time to the last time I saw it, the color has definitely improved and is less brown ale than it was before. So
It drinks super light,
it
super
does.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Thank
yeah.
you. No,
I
no obvious off flavors.
No,
Not that we want to tell you in front of other people.
Come
Yeah.
on, man. That's,
I got to point this way for other
That's his
people.
whole point.
you guys
No.
are subject matter experts. I look for those things.
No, honestly, I'm not catching any off flavors on it at all.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd
No,
echo
same.
is the carbonation's a little light, and the head retention, it didn't stick around for one reason or another,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
that is
may be related. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's good.
I think we left off on a question for Matt.
We did. So
correct?
back to Matt. Sorry for the little segue there.
No, thanks for having something to fill. That's good. I think what you asked me was what led to us deciding to open a brewery that was focused solely on barrel aging.
Correct.
Yes.
And what was interesting is I'll back up a little bit in my history. I've been a brewer for about 20 years now, and I started in Chicagoland at a couple different brew pubs. And I met Paulie at Flossmoor Station, where I was there from 03 to 09. And Paulie was not only one of my best customers, but became a good friend. We met over a beer at the bar. And I followed a brewer who was very well known for barrel aging as Todd Ashman. And he ended up moving to a brewery in Green Bay. But he got his start at Flossmoor Station, making one of the first, along with Goose Island, making barrel-aged, bourbon barrel-aged beers. And so I learned a lot from taking over from him. And I grew to have a passion for barrel-aged beers. So when I moved in 2009 to Oregon to work for a brewery called Oakshire Brewing, they were only a couple years old and were making, amber ale, IPA, stout, and standard beers. I helped them start the barrel program, started packaging beer for them because I had a little bit of experience. And so I was heading up their specialty beers and all the barrel aged stuff. And I really enjoyed that, have a passion for it. And what was crazy was most of the time, you guys know a lot of breweries where you live that have barrel aging programs, and it's usually a small part of their thing. It's not everything. And that's good because it doesn't always make a lot of money. You got to crank out IPAs, got to crank out lagers, pay the bills. And I was wanting to make more and more barrel aged beers at this previous brewery called Oakshire, but we had to crank out IPA in cans, and we didn't have time to lay out the barrels on the floor, move things around. It's a very labor intensive taking beer in and out of barrels. And so my now current business partner, and also he worked for me at the time, he would work second shift because we were a growing brewery. We got to about 10,000 barrels a year there. And I would have him, after the canning line was done, the forklifts were out of the way, everything was moved. He would work from, noon to 8 or 2 to 10. And I'd say, empty those barrels, rack this, do that, do that. And so anyway, making the story kind of long, but basically he came to me and said he had his brother on board, who's our third business partner, said, let's open a brewery that's focused only on barrel aging. And I said, well, that's dumb. We'll never make any money. But I thought about it more and realized I was in the right partnership with these two guys. And we said, yeah, why not do that where you're not trying to chase after all these pennies, because really margins are thin on beer. If you guys make beer at home and have crunched the numbers on opening your own brewery, you might realize, yeah, you don't make much per ounce, much per keg. If you only had a little brew pub, you can make some money. You can do all right, but you end up trying to grow volume. And so we decided to make this little niche thing where we focused only on barrel-aged beers and could do that well. And seems like it might one day make a profit. We're still working on that. But in the meantime, it's been extremely gratifying, enjoyable, fun, whatever, to make these beers that not only I love to drink, I love to make. But it solely lets us focus on this little niche that we like to do. It's not for everyone. The price point isn't for everyone. But we're real foodies too, and a lot of our beers are very food friendly and drinkable. It's just been fun. And will we ever go to non-barrel aged beers someday? Maybe. But right now we've been doing this, and that's kind of how we got into it.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scott, go ahead, man.
How long before you were able to sell your first beer then, if you're barrel aging everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. Interestingly, when you start a business plan like this and you say, wait, are we a winery or a brewery? Because just like a winery, you have to get it in barrels and wait a while.
True.
And when you're starting up with, as much startup money as you can, hoping it's enough, we knew we were going to have to wait a while. When we first started, we didn't make 100% barrel aged beers. We release beers 4 times a year, and there's typically about 4 beers in a release. So it's kind of like a winery where you have these staggered releases that 4 come out at a time. And we were always doing 1 beer that was non-barrel aged, and it was usually Belgian inspired. It was a Saison, it was a wit beer, it was maybe a German Goza, fruited Goza, something we called them instant gratification beers. Drink it now. Don't save it. Don't hold it in your cellar. Just drink that thing. And so those helped us get started because we could make a 3-week beer and not have to wait so long. The other thing was we put some Brett Saisons in barrel, and we knew that 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months in oak would be enough for those. We weren't making a lambic that needed 3 years or something like that. So we came out of the gate with some shorter age stuff. And I will tell you that our first year, 2016, and even into the beginning of 2017, our beers were okay. They were good, but they're not near as good as I think they are now. And that just time didn't, we had to make a decision on sell some beer that maybe is young, or just wait it out and get really, really poor. We chose the first. It worked out. People didn't call us on it. But I think people have liked what we've had now because we're 4 years into selling beer.
That's cool.
Yeah, you always wonder, like, when if you have a place that sells like 30-year gin, how the hell did they get started?
Right.
It's like,
right.
Yeah. So that's going to be similar to my question. Is like, what is your average from the time you make it to the time you're serving it? What is your average on that?
So we have 2 kind of groups of beers. We have our spirits barrel aged beers, which we call our clean beers. No Brettanomyces, no lactobacillus. Those are your imperial stouts and Scotch ales, things like that. Those beers typically run. We like to have them at least 9 months. A year is probably average, and some might be 15 months. We're starting to experiment with 18 to 24, but let's just call those year on our spirits barrel aged stuff. The exception is tequila. We've had some tequila beers that take like 4 months, and they're like full of tequila. And tequila and rum, really. So bourbon is the year. And then our wild and sour beers, those are anywhere from a couple months to 3 years. We're starting to save some that maybe we can do like a 3-year, maybe not a lambic style beer, but in that vein, in that inspiration.
Okay.
And what we've learned too is the longer you go, the populations of organisms in your barrel continue to grow. And so your beers develop faster, they get sour faster, and you're able to put them out instead of 18 months, maybe it's tasting great in about 9 months. So let's just call it a year typically. And so the interesting thing too, with all this coronavirus stuff, everyone's like, well, are you still brewing? Are people buying beer? And we know that people are buying beer and people are buying packaged beer, but we're brewing for beer that will be sold in 2021. And we package beer in bottle condition, and we usually have at least 2 months there. So the beer we're packaging right now is going to be sold in the summer. The beer we're brewing is blended next year. Therefore, we keep our employees going, which is great.
That's great to hear.
So what kind of brew schedule do you guys keep? Are you brewing every week, every other week, or how does that work out?
This is very interesting too. A lot of things we do are very different. We didn't buy a brew house when we started our brewery. We just bought fermenters and blending tanks and a whole lot of wood barrels. And we've stuck with that. We thought we might have a brew house by now, but what we did is, Rare Barrel out in California, Crooked Stave in Colorado. I'm sure there's probably some in the Midwest and East Coast now too that are doing this, but we basically just go to a partner brewery, and it's not like contract brewing. We don't pick up the wort. I go and brew it. So we load our truck with the malt and the hops. We drive over to their brewery, and I make the beer, and we have one of our other guys come up and pick up the wort, haul it to our fermenter to ferment there.
Got it. Okay.
It's weird to borrow someone's brewery, but it's like a commissary kitchen, like a chef went or a food truck went and made it in some kitchen and then finished it at their place. And it certainly was good for startup capital, not having to buy a brew house. And so the reason I started with that story is we started on a friend's 20-barrel brew house. They had a new production brewery that had some space, and they let us come in. We were brewing about twice a month. So, that'd be 40 barrels of wort, 400, 500 barrels a year, something like that. So we only had to brew like twice a month. Well, we recently stepped up to some bigger tanks and a bigger brewery, and we make 50-barrel batches now. We still brew about twice a month, and now we can make, what would that be? 100 barrels, 1,200 barrels. We can make 1,200 barrels now. We're a little under that. So interestingly, with blended beer like we do, we make our blonde sour base, we make a Brett Saison, we make an imperial milk stout, and then later we can add things to those, whether it be fruit, grapes, or vanilla beans, whatever it is, and we blend all those things together. Well, we have a dark sour too, like a red sour. So we'll make these big batches, get them into barrels, and then pick and choose what we want later to blend together. So it's not as traditional as you'd normally see in a brew house where it goes brewery to fermenter to bright tank to can, bottle, or keg, and then out the door.
Right.
So, now, when you're talking about this, and is there any concerns as you guys go that of scalability, that like as you want to grow, you have a little bit of a bottleneck in your process on that?
Well, yeah. So we have recently, at kind of the middle to end of last year, decided to grow a little bit and did do that scaling. And all that took was going from those 20-barrel tanks to 50-barrel tanks. We actually have a 100-barrel blend tank. So we put several of those 20-barrel batches together for one release. And it's interesting because we have a club that we sell small little blends to that only can get if you're in the club. And so we need our smaller tanks. But we sell some more beers that we might do around to distribution. And so we need that 100-barrel tank. So then continuing to scale that even more, what that means is getting another warehouse for barrels. So interestingly, when I walked down the steps and pan the computer around the brew house, you didn't see any barrels because we've taken them all out of that warehouse, put them in another one. And we have another facility outside of town where our tasting room is and all of our wild and sour beers are. And so to grow, because we're hauling wort around, we also haul beer around in totes. We can just get more warehouses, fill more barrels, because a barrel to us is really a little fermenter. It's a 53 to 60 gallon fermenter. So we can just get another warehouse, stack those barrels, and do it that way.
Okay.
I've got about 9,000 questions.
Yeah, I've got a bunch myself, man.
All right, let me jump in on at least one of them. So, from where are you sourcing your barrels?
So we are very fortunate on the wine barrel side that there's like, gosh, I don't know how many wineries in this state. I wish I knew the number right now, but there's hundreds and hundreds of wineries in the state. And we happen to open our tasting room out in wine country. Because I guess I should mention too, I wish I could have sat out there. The internet connection isn't great, so that's why I'm not there. But you should come visit when you can. We are in wine country in the southern end of the Willamette Valley, where there's a bunch of wineries out there. One of the biggest in the state is called King Estate, and we share a property line. When we built Elson, we not only wanted to focus on barrel-aged beers, but we also wanted to think about when you go to a winery or a great out-of-town brewery, let's say, Hill Farmstead or something like that. When you have that experience on a hilltop, on a beer patio with a beautiful view, like conversations get better, the day gets better, your spouse looks prettier, whatever it is, things are just better when you leave the hustle and bustle of the city behind and go out to the country. So because we're out in wine country and we make a lot of wine influenced beer, we actually add some grapes to some of our beers. We have friends who we can source those barrels from. And we're getting wine barrels for like $50, and we don't even have to go very far.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, that's impressive.
Really great.
Yeah.
Now, the bourbon barrels, we like the Kentucky bourbon barrels best. So we're getting those from Kentucky through a distributor, basically. Someone whose business is just to go get all kinds of stuff. There's several now around the country. We have a few that we work with. So they're sourcing them for us, sending them out to us.
Okay.
And we can just order them as we need. Like we can just tell them, hey, we need some tequila barrels, and they'll tell us the brands they have, stuff like that. And
Next
those
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
So all of this is being blended then. Who's in charge of blending?
Okay, so like I mentioned, I have 2 business partners. They're brothers. Brian and Doug Coombs are their names. I worked with Brian at Oakshire previous to opening Alesong, and he's our cellar master. So he kind of watches over all the ferments, all the logs, all the barrels and what's in them. We end up all working on the blends together. Maybe we talk about where we're going with something, but he'll put it together. We'll sit down on a panel, and it's one of those terrible brewing jobs where you have to sit around and drink this sample, that sample, this sample. Nope, more sour, more this, more that. So Brian, one of our business partners, is in charge of that.
Okay.
And so you have separate. You were saying you have separate warehouses for the soured stuff or anything that's going to have bugs in it versus the clean stuff.
Yep. Interestingly, there are some breweries like ours around the country who maybe only make sour beers. Cascade Brewing in Oregon is one. Rare Barrel in California is one. And that is great because you can just, if all you're making is sour beers, you can let lactobacillus go wherever it wants. We chose to make bourbon barrel and other clean styles too. And so when we started, we had them all in the same warehouse, and we were just careful, but we didn't have any employees at the time. So if the business owner is touching all the parts and keeping it separate, you feel better. Once you get more employees, you just have to be careful. And so we knew the best way to do that was keep them apart. So our wild and sour stuff is 20 miles away from our clean beers. So
is that enough? That's enough.
Yeah. Separate parts, separate pumps, separate hoses, separate buildings.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, and I've heard that that's the big drawback to doing sours is you need like segregated stuff to make sure you don't, contaminate what's going on. So let me ask you a slightly more fundamental question. I am doing something wrong because there is a huge amount of people out there that are just in love with bourbon infused beers. And for some reason, I can't wrap my mind around, and I can't enjoy a bourbon infused beer. So for someone that is, tries it and it's either too much bourbon or it has gone sour or whatnot, it's like, what is the sweet spot for a bourbon infused beer that gets that flavor but doesn't forget it's a beer and things like that? Does that question make sense?
No, I do know what you mean. First, do you like bourbon?
I do. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
but a lot of them, it's like when the West Coast IPAs first came out and all you could taste was hops. That's how I feel about a lot of bourbon beers right now, is that all you taste is the bourbon and you lose so much of the beer character that it's not enjoyable.
Well, what I would say to that is, I would agree. There are a whole lot of those types of beers that aren't that great, or if they are great, they're great in a 2 to 4 ounce sample, and then you move on.
Right.
Yep.
And, I think all beer, whether it's sour, whether it's a bourbon beer or an IPA or a Pilsner, it's about balance. And yeah, you can have a beer that's really hoppy. You can have a beer that's really sour. But for the most part, you want to be able to drink a glass or 2 or more. And I think the way to do that is balance. And so I wish you had some of our beers in front of you. I think you would find that some of them are very drinkable compared to some of those you had. The problem is now people are trying to get them so sweet with lactose or, whatever, or putting so much fruit puree in them because it looks cool on Instagram to make it that way. But sometimes they just don't seem drinkable. And I think, I don't know which bourbon barrel beers you've had, but I think sometimes they forget about balance and they're too sweet, too bourbony, too hot, too high in alcohol. At least a lot that I have are that way. So we strive to make them approachable, drinkable. You want to be able to have, 8 ounces of a 10% beer or something like that. And I'll be honest with you too. I don't go home and drink our bourbon barrel aged imperial stout every night.
It's totally understandable.
No,
but what would
let me
ask it this way: is like, what suggestion would you give to those breweries to achieve more of that balance? Like, what is, without giving away too much of your secret sauce, like what are you guys doing that kind of takes it from a good bourbon barrel to a great bourbon barrel beer?
Well, I'll tell you, I hope we're making great bourbon barrel aged beers, but I tell you what, one key is, and some breweries can't do this, is blending for that balance and drinkability. Whereas when you have 2 barrels in your cellar because you have just a small project that your owners let you buy, or 4 barrels or something like that, when you put them in those barrels, you have no stock to blend with, and you just have to take what's there. And if it came out really, really boozy, what are you going to do? Well, what you could do is you could go brew another batch of non-barrel aged beers, and you could say, well, I'm going to do a 50-50 blend, non-barrel aged and barrel aged, and maybe it won't be over bourbony. So that's a option. And then you go ahead and stick that second half you didn't need of the beer into barrels again. For us, it's great because all we do is barrel aging. We have warehouses full of hundreds of barrels, and so we have a lot to choose from. We can just go grab some more and blend this and blend that, or do some non-barrel aged stuff. And the other thing I think is, because there's 8,000 breweries in the country, probably more, but there's going to be less, but whatever. Let's just use 8,000. You have to try hard to impress people. And I'll be honest, we opened this barrel-aged brewery because you have to differentiate yourself between different breweries. You have to stand out, and an all barrel-aged brewery stands out. And I would say that some people are trying to impress people, making it as hazy as you can, even if it doesn't taste good, making it as alcoholic as you can. Like, can I make it 21% alcohol? Well, does it taste good? No, but it's 21% alcohol.
Right, right.
What you did is you got people to talk about it online, but you're not selling it in volume that makes you any money. So I think just thinking about what your goals are, and not going overboard.
Jason, you had a question?
That you asked the exact question that I was going to ask about, just like where is that balance? And I mean, it's a question that's well worth asking, because I feel like that there's a lot more misses on that front than there are hits. So
well, you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt your thought.
Sure.
All I was going to say is sometimes you make a beer and you want to make it drinkable, but what I'll tell you, one secret that I have is sometimes you need to make a beer for barrels, not a beer for drinking. Because if it's a beer for drinking that's got, like, let's say your finishing gravity is 10-12. I use Plato, so let's say it's 4 Plato. Putting that in a bourbon barrel aged beer, it's almost too dry, and the oak tannins and the boozy bourbon, the ethanol that's in there is going to make it taste dry. So when I make a bourbon barrel aged beer, the beer that comes out of the fermenter that goes into barrels, I try to make it sweeter than you'd like, because I know it's going to dry out in the barrel, at least the perception of dryness from alcohol, the ethanol, and from the oak tannins. And so that's one of the ways you can think about balance, is don't think about the finished product out of the fermenter. You got to think what the barrel's going to do to it to provide that balance.
That's great advice.
That is great advice. And speaking of that, one of the things that, and this is just, I don't really know how much this affects it, and it might be, I'm rambling. I swear I'll get there. That it might be like first run, second run, third run, it might be different. But if you put in a 6% alcohol beer in a bourbon barrel for, 8 months, what's it going to come out at? Is there a big difference? I never really thought about that before.
Yeah. I used to always say it was 1% to 2%, but in our trials, because we are lucky too that the winery that's next to us can run lab samples, and we have some other large breweries in our town that we're friends with that'll run them through their labs. So we get alcohol checks, so all of our stuff is accurate on our label, and it gains over 2%, sometimes up to 4%. So that's another consideration, is because that's ethanol being added that was soaked into the wood. Don't tell the government, they don't want that to happen, but it does. And then ethanol is going to make flavors and change your perception of body, change your perception of balance, and things like that. So we think about those, and what we do is we look into the barrels and see how wet they are. You can kind of tell if they're sloshing around with some bourbon in there, or if they're dry as a bone and flaky, you might not pick up as much. So we'll keep that in consideration as well.
So does that make a difference if it's the first time it's used for aging versus the third time, how much alcohol you'll pick up?
Yep, for sure. Because we only typically use our bourbon barrels once, and it's frustrating because they cost about $200 each, and we use our wine barrels over and over and over because we're just using them as housing for the organisms, for the Brettanomyces, Lactobacillus, and so we'll just give those a rinse of the dead yeast and reuse them. Whereas with the bourbon barrels, you're looking for use of all those flavors: vanillin, cinnamon, caramel, toffee, bourbon flavors. And when you're drinking those in a bourbon barrel aged stout, let's say, those came from the barrel, you've taken them out. So when you age a beer the second time, not only have you taken some of the ethanol out, but you've taken those flavor components out. And so it tastes way less impactful the second time. So you have to use a smaller beer. Maybe you use a Scottish ale or an amber ale or Irish red ale or something. Or you have to leave it in longer. And then you also have a chance for infection as you're moving beer in and out, and you're so many cracks and crevices that you could have infection. So we turn them into planters, or we sometimes put them in our wild program and say, okay, we're going to make a Flanders style red ale in second use bourbon barrels. And that works out pretty nice.
Isn't there certain instances where certain breweries will try to reinfuse either bourbon or whiskey flavors into a barrel so they can get a more quote unquote productive second run out of it?
Yep, there's a lot of people who refresh barrels where you'll just go buy a bottle of your favorite whiskey, dump that in, roll it around the brew house,
right,
and you're good to go. And I may have done that before in my past. I can't really remember. Sometimes I feel like it's cheating, but certainly you got to do what you got to do. It's a business, so I get it. Now, again, don't tell the government that. They would call that adding booze to your beer and would need you to state that on the label or something.
What they don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're not watching this. So you can't do it.
So our show is kind of, and Scott's show as well, is kind of based around the homebrewing scene. So obviously most of us don't make enough beer at a time, nor can the average homebrewer afford to have a gigantic bourbon barrel sitting around. So a lot of us use like spirals or cubes or something. Do you have any suggestions on a slightly smaller scale of like best ways to accomplish a faux barrel type situation? I don't know if you have any experience with that.
Well, it's really a good idea, and we've experimented with some. We've added some oak chips to a beer that needed some more sort of tannin structure to it. So I think it's a good idea because there's a lot of good products out there, whether it be spirals or cubes or whatever. I think one of the best things you can do, and you guys maybe have figured this out, is one of the reasons I don't like making small homebrew size batches is depending on what your fermentation is, sometimes it's hard to get it out of there cleanly or without, hassle. It's so easy on, of course, a fermenter where you just walk up to it, like that we use, where you walk up to the Zwickel and pour it into a glass. You can just taste it as it goes, or a blending tank or aging tank. But barrels are the same way, where we can just we use the Vinny nail where we can just, I don't know if you've seen that, a little nail in the bottom, you pull it out with the pliers and you get a sample off the bottom of your barrel.
Right.
I can explain that more if you need to, but that's really easy. What I hate is a glass carboy or some kind of, that size 5-10 gallon carboy, and you can't get into it, because what I think the best thing you have to do on that is just taste as you go. Because I don't know what the best, ratio of amount of cubes or anything like that is. And I'll tell you, a lot of what we do is taste it and see how it is. Someone will say, how long should you age, like we were talking about before, or how long should it be in a bourbon barrel? Well, you have to just taste it and find out. So I think the same thing with using spirals or cubes or any kind of oak product. You just have to put it in, let it go, and make sure it doesn't go too far, especially if you don't have anything to blend it back with.
Right.
The Homebrew Club that Paulie and I belonged to, and George, when he still lived in Illinois, was a part of also. We did a group project about 2 years ago where we all made a barley wine independently, and then we mixed it in with a whiskey infused barrel. And we did exactly what you just described. Is we had pre-planned meetings where we would get together every 6 months, take out a small sample, and then determined, okay, are we done? And the first 2 times the answer was no. So back in the barrel. See you guys later. So that makes total sense. That I think that's probably the only way to kind of properly gauge that.
So you had said that you consider them fermenters, but you also said you have fermenters. So how much do you actually, and I may have misheard this, and I apologize if I did, how much do you actually ferment in the barrel versus in your fermenters?
Yeah, I probably said that wrong. I should have called them aging tanks, even though they are fermenting a little bit. They're really maturation tanks. But so we have our stainless fermenters, and we do all primary fermentation in there. There have been a few batches that we've fermented in oak, and they've turned out pretty well. So we like doing that, but it's a little bit messy because you don't want to fill that thing full. And you don't have a blow off bucket. I know I've seen some people that have made some little rigs out of PVC pipe and things like that to get to the floor drain, but which we could do. But it's a little harder than you've got a messy barrel that's crusty inside that you can't really get to. You have to transfer it off that to get some of the krausen out of there, or you're topping it off because once the krausen head goes down. So it's not the perfect fermentation vessel, but we've done it, and we've done it because we had no more stainless steel space. Typically what we like to do is leave it in stainless for 2 to 4 weeks, move it to barrels, depending on if we need that tank again, and then let it age there and get our fermenters filled back up. Then once we age it in there, we have other stainless tanks that are primarily for fruiting and blending. The blend tanks we'll package off of the fruit. We got 2 fruiting tanks, and they're basically wine tanks, so they're jacketed but not insulated, and there's some things on them that are for putting fruit on it because wine tanks grapes, and they want to be able to separate the grape from the liquid, and so they're very nice for if we have cherries or peaches or whatever. We'll use those tanks. So that's kind of how we use stainless versus oak. Oh, and we also have 3 20-barrel fooders, so the large format oak tanks are nice, and they hold 20 shy of 20 barrels, so you're looking at 600 gallons in each of those 4.
Okay. Oh man. Oh boy.
I wish I could give you a tour of our wood cellar because it's pretty impressive.
That would be amazing.
I got a question, man. Is there a way? What is that page that we can get? You can get on your mailing list, the Alesong mailing list, like Sean's on right now.
Yeah.
To get Alesong shipped.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So we have a club. It's called Alesong Blender Circle, and when we started our brewery, we did it with just an email list. And if you gave us your email, then you were in our club, and you could buy whenever you wanted. And you got some special perks. But we realized some people would buy, some people wouldn't buy. We did it that way because we didn't want people to regret signing up for a club that you were committed to. But we realized people got frustrated and they said, I can't remember when to order, when not to order, when's it coming. Would you just take my credit card and bill me? And so we said, sure. And we started a club where you could join the club. You did. Yeah. And 4 times a year you get those beers. We can ship anywhere in Oregon legally, but through Tavour. You guys familiar with Tavour out in Washington? Tavour. They're kind of like a beer of the month club. They're a subscription thing where you sign up and you get emails every week, and it says we've got this beer from this brewery, and you just say I want it, then they'll ship it to you after your box is full. It's a nice program, and they ship to 20 states for us. And so, for instance, Paulie's friend Sean is in the club. He lives in Illinois because that's one of the legal states. And he gets 8 bottles every 3 months. And it's great if you live out here because you get a complimentary flight every time you walk in our door. You come to our parties. We have 4 times a year. We have parties with food pairings, cheese, chocolate, whatever. But the great thing is some of those states and alesongbrewing.com/join is where you can go and check out the benefits for the club and see if it works for you. There's no fee to join. It's not you pay me $500 and I'll let you buy beer. It's you pay this fee, which is 10% off 8 bottles of beer 4 times a year. It's $139 for out-of-state members. And you can cancel anytime. So let's say you did it for 1 quarter. You got the bottles. You said, I hate Alesong beer. You can cancel. Or you can just stay in it and get 32 beers a year.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the recent offerings that have been part of one of the boxes?
Yeah. So our last release was a Frambois lambic inspired beer with raspberries grown here in Oregon. We had Senior Rhino Suit. Rhino Suit is our base imperial milk stout aged in bourbon barrels, and Senior Rhino is the Mexican hot chocolate inspired version. Cinnamon, vanilla, cocoa nibs, and ancho chilies. And then we had a beer called Farmhouse Cuvée, which was just a blend of some of our favorite barrels, and we dry hopped it. And then the fourth beer, I'm forgetting, Frambois, Senior Rhino, Farmhouse Cuvée. I'll think of the fourth in a second, but we try to make it sort of a farmhousey beer, maybe a fruited sour. We have a Pesh coming up with some great peaches in it. 3 out of the 4 releases will have a bourbon barrel or 2. Oh, that's it. It was Kentucky Kilt, a bourbon barrel aged Scotch ale that we made. Nice. Was the 4th beer. And for an out-of-state member who gets 8 bottles, you get 2 bottles of each one. We also, on that 4-bottle release, 1 is for club members only. You can't even come to our tasting room and buy it. You have to be in the club. And that's the beauty of knowing how many people are in the club. We make the blend just for them, and we know how many bottles to make. And then 1 is for tasting room only. You won't find it out in the stores. And then usually 2 are bigger blends. This last one, it was Frambois and Senior Rhino. They go out to distribution. That's kind of the
so. Scott, not sure if you can hear me right now, but you are on the list. You can do this. I unfortunately cannot. However,
where do you live, George?
I may have you in Virginia, okay. And I may have you send some to my cousin up in Pennsylvania, though, because that's not a long distance to drive.
It's close enough.
It's close enough. Yeah, exactly.
We do have Tavour. I can get it.
Good.
Yeah,
then if Tavour can get you beer, then you could be in our club. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, hey, speaking of beer, I'm gonna go fill this again. If you guys don't mind, give me 3 minutes. Talk amongst yourselves.
Absolutely.
All right, Jason. I think I'm gonna break into my second bottle of yours too. I was gonna hang on to it, but
have at it, man. By all means.
Let's talk about him while he's gone.
Oh, sure. Paul, you're friends with him.
I was writing notes about your.
What are we missing here?
Nothing. Matt's a good guy, man. That's why I had him on. Just like I said, this was a guy that inspired me to venture into brewing. He was actually when I decided to learn to brew.
Yeah,
I called. He was the first person I called. Like, how do I do this? And that's how I ended up going over to, volunteering at Flossbar and all that stuff.
It's definitely interesting.
And I'll tell you a funny story. I don't know if you remember this. I'm going to wait till he comes back to tell this because it was like first you remember meeting him. Oh, yeah. I'm going to go have a quick smoke and get a beer too. But when he comes back, remind me and I'll tell you the story.
Okay. All right. We love stories. Oh, boy. I am left unattended. Okay. While we have a break in the action, check us. I'll give out our website and social media links once again. Our website is www.aniceplacetobrew.com. Our social media links are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at A Nice Place to Brew and Nice Place to Brew. And check out our podcasts on all the major platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all the major ones. And also Scott at WNY Brews is on all the major podcasting platforms as well. Matt, Paulie apparently has a story from your and Paulie's past that he's going to tell right when he gets back from being outside. But one question I have for you: your roots are here in the Chicagoland area, correct?
Yeah, I actually I grew up in Eastern Iowa.
Okay.
Right between the Quad Cities and Iowa City, and a small little town called Wilton. And after college, moved up to Chicago. I was a teacher in Naperville, and I did that for 6 years. I was a science teacher. The short part of that story is I had summers off. My wife had a good job at North Central College. She was a hall director over there, and so we didn't have hardly any bills. We had no kids at the time. And my brother introduced me to the brewer at Glen Ellen Brewing Company in Glen Ellen, Illinois, just west of Chicago. And I said, hey, I got summers off, spring off, winter break off. Can I come in and help you out? I was getting the homebrew bug. This was late 90s. So a lot of brew pubs were opening. And I thought it was so cool. And I was connecting my science teaching sort of background with fermentation. And I was passionate about it. I said, can I come in and help you a little bit? And he said, sure. And every Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, spring break, I was in there washing kegs for him, just doing the grunt work. But it was so fun. And I didn't mean for it to turn into a job, but I did leave teaching to go brew with him. And then I got a job at the Firehouse in Morris, Illinois. And then I went to Flossmoor Station. And in between, I worked for Two Brothers for just a little bit.
Okay.
And I really was going to go back to teaching. And I mean, I'm 47 years old right now. I could have retired when I was 55, 56. That's not many years from now. That would have been sweet. But here I am with the crazy job of making beer. So bad.
That is an awesome story, though. Actually, and I've got a couple tie-ins myself. I was born and raised in Naperville myself.
Oh, nice.
I'm a graduate of Naperville North. And obviously, with North Central being right outside downtown, I certainly was near that area pretty much all the time. So
I lived here. I don't mean to cut you off, but 1998 I got married, and my wife got a job as a hall director at North Central College. We lived in the dorms in an all-female freshman residence hall. And at the time I was 26. I'm like, this is going to be great. Guess what? It wasn't great. It sucked.
Wow.
I ate dinner in the cafeteria. We had no bills, rent free, and so that's why I was able to take a pay cut and become a brewer. So,
wow. And you got started. I mean, that's very much the early days of craft beer. If you were starting that in the late 90s, wow.
Yeah. 2001. I taught it at Neuqua Valley High School and another middle school there.
They must have been just opening then, right?
Yep.
When you started teaching. Yeah.
Yeah. I was at a middle school from 95 to 98. And then I moved up to the high school, and they were pretty new. Mm-hmm. So 95 to 2001, I was a teacher. Spring of 2001, I started brewing professionally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
I'm old.
So,
all right, Paulie. All right, story time.
Oh, Paulie, keep it clean.
Oh, yeah. Trust me, I will. But I remember the very first day I met you when you took over, when I started going to Flossmoor regularly. And you're walking from the back by that. You're walking from where you had the barrel stash, and you're rolling this huge freaking barrel. I'm like, what are you going to put in there? What do you got? We talked real well, and then you brought me down to the expansion and showed me everything down in the basement and all that. And I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. That was the first time ever in my life seeing a brewer roll a 60-gallon fucking barrel down a hallway.
Glad I could inspire you.
Yeah, totally.
And Paulie, you brewed a little bit at Flossmoor Station, right?
Yes, I did.
Did they ever put you on the payroll, or were you just helping out for free?
I was interning there.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I was just. That's actually, if it wasn't, for Flossmoor, I wouldn't know a good portion of what I know today. I wouldn't say nothing, but a good portion of what I know today.
Yeah,
it was fun. I enjoyed working there. But it was actually kind of cool to go from a 16 barrel system and scale it down to 5. And like I'm pretty much working there with my background. I pretty much built my brew house, my system, right? And it's always evolving. I'm always figuring out new ways.
Yep.
I'm actually in the middle of one right now. My buddy Rick. What? Hello?
No, nothing. Yeah. Please go ahead. Go ahead. Yours is better than mine.
But just a few friends, with work, help build the system at Brew and Grow, and it's just fun now. That's been my hobby. That's a fun part of the hobby. Someone's like, "Hey, I got all this equipment. All right, let's build a brew stand for you." Nice when you can roll it out in the driveway and then roll it back in and not have to tear it all down and put it away.
I'll give you another tip. Keep it a hobby. It's way more fun if you keep it a hobby. If you make it a job.
All right.
You know, we at our brew club, we have what is it, 4 different startup breweries that have spawned up from our homebrew club. Is that the number we're at now, Paulie? 4? But it's funny, Matt, that you mentioned that, because at a recent meeting we had before all the COVID shutdowns, all those guys were kind of seated at one table together, and every single one of them just simultaneously said, "You know what? Making batches at home was really great." You know, and and they all just kind of had a mutual just moment of nostalgia of from being around that and being able to do that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot to be said about that, and we could talk for millions of reasons why, but really it's like when you're running a business, that's the first thing on your mind. So you're thinking, okay, this has to sell, or it has to meet this group of people that want to have it. When you're at home and it's your size, you say, this just has to please me, and that's it. And there are breweries out there who say, we make what we want to drink and people better like it. That might be true, but that's probably BS as well.
Well, the alternative to that is the speed that you have to go, and being a brewery owner, I think you can speak to this, because people's taste and just people's cravings evolve so quickly, and there's always just this race around craft breweries to keep pace with that and keep availability of whatever it is that people have a taste for, and that quickly can become very stressful for a brewery just trying to keep up with that.
Yeah.
What Jason wants to know is, did you brew a glitter brute seltzer?
No. We haven't even brewed
a barrel aged glitter brute seltzer.
Maybe.
I'll put it on the list. Ideas now.
All it is a tortilla with steak and cheese in there.
No, I will tell you, we make those decisions too. For instance, a fruited sour beer will sell better and faster than a Brettanomyces only saison.
Sure.
And we make a beer called Touch of Brett. It won a gold medal at Great American Beer Fest and 2 bronzes in consecutive years. And so it was well thought of by judges. I think if you like pale ales, it's dry hopped also with either Citra, Galaxy, something like that. So real fruity. If you like pale ales, it's a great beer for you. You could sit there and down it. But because fruited sour beers with a bunch of, raspberries in it is more sexy, they sell better. So guess what? We're going to make a little more of those because we're running a business. And it's unfortunate you have to make decisions based on that, but you do.
Sure. I have one question, and it is not craft beer related. So before I radically change direction, does anyone want to follow that?
I have a non-craft beer related question too.
Oh boy.
Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Okay.
I'll start.
I guess we're done with craft beer. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I'm not done with craft beer, but I've got a question.
All right, just back to the Illinois roots for a second. You've been in Oregon now for how many years?
Moved here in 2009, so I'm 11 years in.
All right. Okay. So I imagine that there's certain things in, or I should say, from Illinois that you probably are nostalgic for and kind of miss.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I really miss is FOBAB. We should be there, and as a barrel aged brewery, but it's a lot to enter. It's a lot of beer to donate to enter. So I do miss that fest because I was on the ground floor. I was there kind of when it started. We decided to go this year to come to FOBAB and compete with our beers, but now this coronavirus is probably going to kill that thought.
Yeah.
I hope not, but I can't imagine that many people getting into a room and having the Festival of Barrel Aged Beer.
Agreed. And I just saw Scott quickly move his lips right at the hearing of FOBAB. What do you got there, Scott?
He said FOBAB, and I dropped a WTF is FOBAB.
Oh, it's Festival of Barrel Aged Beers. It's
okay. All right.
It's hosted here in Chicago. Yeah, every October, I think it is. Yeah, right around Halloween.
November. No, it's November. It's like right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Right. It's early November usually. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm gonna.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to pick on Scott for a second, and here's where I was going with this. Scott is from Buffalo, New York, and being that Scott has become a regular here on our twice a week webcast, we have made it a point to introduce Scott to certain things from our areas, Midwest being one of them. And Scott got to try his first taste of Malort live here on the webcast a couple weeks ago. So I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. How, can you share any history you have with Malort?
Oh, me or Scott?
Matt.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, Matt. I'll explain that I did it and I didn't think it was going to be that bad. And then I tried it like, oh yeah, this is pretty bad. No, I get it.
You know, when I lived there, because I've been gone a decade, it might have been a thing then, but it became much more of a thing much more recently. And so I'm kind of glad I got out of town before the thing was cool, because it's not good.
No, it's not.
Guys, you just don't get it. I wish I could send you buffalo wings. I wish I could. They wouldn't get there as good as they are here. I wish I could send you buffalo wings.
Yeah.
The problem
Scott,
is too.
Done right.
Scott, are you a Bills fan?
Of course I'm a Bills fan. Of course I'm a Bills fan. Who's talking? Because we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight.
Well,
oh boy.
You have a lot of Hawkeyes on your team, and the newest one, AJ Epinesa, he's a beast.
Yeah.
The first
excited.
pick for you guys.
Oh, I'm super excited.
Yeah,
our Brandon Bean, man, he is killer at drafting. We are. When I was 9 at the first Bills Super Bowl, and my son is 9 right now. So like I went through 25 years of terrible Bills.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that he doesn't have to. But oh man, I'm so excited this year. And then we have a friggin' pandemic. We probably won't even have a season.
Yeah.
All right, my weird non-beer question. Jim Croce has taught me that the south side of Chicago is terrible. Is the south side of Chicago terrible, or is it just a Jim Croce thing?
Oh, you know something? That's a good question.
Yeah.
Many parts of the south side of Chicago are terrible, but and Polly, don't get into a fight with me on this. Many are, but there's some pockets of places that are just classic. Blue Island, you know, where I was at Flossmoor Station and where I met Polly. That really wasn't south side of Chicago. It was, but it was a little nugget of rich people, and so it wasn't the same grittiness that you get on the south side. There's a whole lot of good things, but I'll tell you something. I'm a Cubs fan, and so south side, that's where the White Sox live.
Yep, exactly.
Can I say something here? I'd like to interject a little bit of Paul Butterfield.
Interject.
Paul Butterfield?
Who dat?
Paul
Butterfield. You guys familiar with him?
No, sir.
I don't know who he is.
Paulie doesn't either.
Oh, man. Well, I am old. I'm officially old.
Well, come on. Explain it since you said so.
All right, we need a lesson.
You got to explain this to everybody.
He's an old Chicago Blues player.
Okay.
He played the harp. He did that tune. I was born in Chicago or whatever. If you're born in Chicago, you better get a gun. YouTube it. You'll find it.
My other, what's the word? My other forays into Chicago include Family Matters and Perfect Strangers. Of course.
We must be similar age watching.
No roses.
Wow.
No what? What was it?
Watching those same sitcoms
No
as kids.
roses.
We must be similar age.
Oh, Jesus.
Say that again, Paulie.
Oh, no, we dropped Roseanne.
Are you okay?
Ow!
That wasn't Chicago, was it?
Got it. You all right?
Yeah, it was pretty close to Chicago. Murder of Children.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's
I
a
mean,
few other ones.
Yeah, they had the fountain in the beginning.
Yep.
Oh, okay. See now, I mean, like I said, when I say Chicago, it's Blues Brothers and it's Family Matters and it's Perfect Strangers and it's you got to put some money on the Cubbies.
How about an Italian beef sandwich?
Yeah.
That's what.
See,
Yeah.
I've never had one.
Oh.
Oh man, we
That's
sent you
fun.
one, but it wouldn't be good when it got there.
That's what I mean. That's a good point.
And then
We-
there's pizza.
We've talked about that on the show too, because you can get Portillo's to deliver out of state, and
Oh,
I'm still tempted to pull the trigger on that. But I mean, for the same reason that you're thinking of, it's like how fresh could it be being delivered from a long distance?
yeah.
Yeah, so
I've done it. I've done it before, and
Oh,
it's really well. It
I
comes
bought
out
it
really
many
well.
times. I bought it many times and taken it to Indianapolis, where my daughters live.
3-hour drive.
We've done this. Yeah, we've done it many, many times, and it comes in a vacuum pack. The beef is in one thing, and then the sauce or a jus is in a container, and it's great. You heat up the stuff, and you just dip the beef in like every sandwich. You know what I'm saying? So you're making one sandwich at a time,
Okay, all
heating the
right.
beef in the you just you hold it in the tongs kind of thing, but it works out perfect. It's just like it's just like eating there.
I think you pushed me over the edge.
You
All
can
right,
dip it,
Scott,
you can dip
Scott,
it or not
you've
dip
got,
it.
You've got Italian beef sandwiches coming to you, my friend.
All right, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Like if I, the problem with buffalo wings,
They
guys,
are
I
good,
don't.
but they are expensive to ship for some reason.
I'm
You could
sure it
probably
is.
ship them cheaper on your own. Just go to one and buy it, But I don't know. It costs more to ship it than to buy it, I think.
Matt, are you familiar with the Cascadian Beer Podcast?
I don't think so.
Are you in Cascadia?
We are in Yep, everywhere from British Columbia on down through Oregon is Cascadia. So I'm in the area. I just haven't heard of it.
All right.
Is it good?
Yeah, it is. It's very good. It's super high quality too. The quality he gets out of it is amazing. I've got a friend out in Cascadia who does a beer podcast on the Cascadian Beer Trail.
Oh, check it out.
I will ask him too. Like how's Elson? Because the problem is, like, we're talking about this. Like, I want to try that. I want to try everything you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish we had it in front of you. That would be the best thing to talk about it as we drank it together.
I know, right? Like on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Welcome back, George. Doing okay?
Hey,
I'm having troubles tonight, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So I'm listening in.
Not like
I'm
you're a
listening on a
host or
delay,
anything.
but
Okay. Right on.
yeah.
What you got there, Scott?
oh, this is the New England IPA I'll be sending you guys.
All right.
I'll play it.
Okay.
It is not barrel aged. I wish it were.
Is that Matt? Is that a thing? New England IPAs barrel aged in any form?
I don't think I've ever seen that. I have had barrel aged IPA, and I've made bourbon barrel aged IPA before, which seems strange and odd, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You could do it, but the problem is, and this is one of my pet peeves in the industry, is calling anything an IPA because that helps sell it. And when you drink it, you're like, that's not an IPA. Like, for instance, many of the vanilla sort of pastry sweet IPAs that don't have any hops in the boil or anything like that. And yeah, there's some hop flavor in there. It's so far from an IPA, and I don't know what else to call it. I don't have an answer, but sometimes people just throw IPA on something. And sometimes if you put a New England IPA in a bourbon barrel, it probably wouldn't taste like an IPA.
I agree, and I didn't think of this until just now, right when you said that. I feel like you could make an argument about New England's in that same vein. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, is this a classic example of what an IPA was originally designed for? Probably not.
Right. I mean, the term IPA, and thanks, Eric. I'm glad that I'm with you on that
Yeah,
one. buddy.
right. That's off, Eric.
They don't suck, but there are a lot of sucky ones out there. I've had some really good ones, but most of them suck. But regardless, you're right. The New England IPA has drifted so far from what we used to call West Coast IPAs or Pacific Northwest IPAs, whatever.
For sure.
And it's totally fine to have different versions, different variants, but man, when it's not bitter anymore, it's hard to call it an IPA.
Yeah.
The best New England IPAs or hazy IPAs that I've had an element of bitterness. It can be soft, it can be balanced, it can be light, and I think that tastes really good. But if it tastes sweet because you added vanilla beans and lactose, don't tell me it's an IPA.
I completely agree. And
maybe I'm old and curmudgeon-y, but that's all I
well, I've had that same like first taste of New England's before, and I like tasted on my tongue, and I'm like, you know what feels like it's missing from this? It feels like there should be a little bit of hot bite that a lot of these just don't have.
Right.
And I think the best New Englands are the ones that have that. So I totally hear what you're saying.
I'm not sending you my beer anymore. You don't get it. You don't get this soft, pillowy IPA.
I still want to try it if it
I
helps.
do too, but Scott,
it's
come
too
on.
late. It's too late.
I didn't mean.
But here's
So,
the best thing about
here's the thing, it's like-
beer.
It's soft and pillowy. By the way, I am just outside of New England.
You can drink what you want, and you can make what you want, and you can enjoy what you want. You don't have to have someone tell you you have to drink this. And that's
I don't
huge
know.
too.
It sounded like everybody just said what they wanted.
That's true. But you can sit at home and drink what you want to drink, which is fine too.
Yes, of course.
I hate that people drink beers because their buddy said it's cool, and people jump on an IPA train or a hazy train only because someone said it's cool. We have people who come into our tap room and say, "Thanks for not making uber hoppy IPAs," because everyone tells them they have to like that style of beer, and you don't have to.
Hazy Train. When I make the parody, you're going to get credit for it.
Hazy train. I bet you several breweries have called their beer that. They had to have.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Hazy
Yeah,
Train.
they had to
Hazy
have.
train, yeah.
I'm writing it down.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
do you see this glass in my hand?
I do.
This is a pillowy sweet New England,
Yep, you're going to get a pillowy New England IPA.
and I look forward
You
to
gotta
enjoying
stop
it.
calling it pillowy, man.
Scott's words, not mine.
It's pillowy.
Oh man,
It's meant to
I
be.
do. I do
Oh.
want to try it, and
It's
Yeah.
got
The
Azaka,
New England's
Citra,
for me-
Mosaic.
yeah, the New Englands for me are more about like fruity and body and character, less about hoppiness. So I get so I do get what people say when they say it's not an IPA. You know, I agree with that, but it is its own style, and I think Matt, you're probably right. They tacked IPA on it because that's a popular term. You know.
Yep, that totally happens. People, I know there's red IPAs, black IPAs, New England IPAs, but sometimes you drink an IPA and it's like, that is nowhere near an IPA. But it
So
sells.
far, a dozen breweries have named their beer Hazy Train and counting on Untapped. So
Nice
just
job
so
on
you
the
know.
quick data search.
So there's a lot of Ozzy Osbourne fans that are
But how
also
many
running breweries.
beer parodies are there on YouTube called Hazy Train?
Probably way more than that.
Sure enough.
Oh,
You know
I
what
bet
they
there's zero.
have not called
Really?
it though, Scott, is pillowy IPA. I'm not finding that one.
Pillowy IPA.
Did you run a search for that, George? Did you?
No, I
seriously,
didn't
did you?
search
Oh.
for that. I just know that it's not there.
I have a couple of beer parody songs on YouTube. And I think in this coronavirus quarantine, I should do a bunch more. Because really, that's where it's at right now. One of them, I want to Stan Hieronymus for Christmas.
What?
That's funny because I'm friends with Stan, and so I find that very funny. But if you don't know
Stan Hieronymus.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Look it up. I want to Stan Hieronymus for Christmas. He commented on it and said, "This was great. Please don't ever do this again."
For real?
Yeah,
That's funny.
it wasn't derogatory at all. It was, I want to stand Hieronymus for Christmas. I want hops, basically.
Oh man.
Are you singing the parody song?
Oh, I am. Yes, I
Oh, good.
am.
I'll look it up. Nice.
Well, with Weird Al retiring, somebody's got to fill the void, right?
Whoa, what?
Well, okay. So his last studio album, he's stated it might be his last studio album. You know,
What?
mandatory
I
fun.
will step in.
You know what? I could totally. You know what? Let's just paint a picture here. Could you not totally see some kind of like Netflix series that's basically framed like NBC's The Apprentice, and the award for winning the contest is taking over Weird Al's space when he retires?
As long as it means that Weird Al will be president, then I'm in.
I mean, listen, I think he's got quite a number of fans out there that would be all about that.
I would vote for Weird Al.
I think I would too.
I think there's a decent amount of Weird Al fans that would vote for Weird Al to replace Weird Al, and I'd be among them.
If it was like Weird Al America was his campaign slogan, Weird Al America 2024, I'm in.
Well, and some people have floated this idea, and I absolutely agree, is that he should do a halftime show at the Super Bowl, assuming we have those again. You know, because people would tune in that have not tuned in or don't pay attention to the halftime show, and then haven't for years. I know I would be among them.
They talked about it on Weird Al's Hot Ones episode.
I
Now,
love
let's-
that you have this in your collective knowledge already.
What?
That you're not Googling it. You're just like, oh, on this Weird Al show I just watched.
No, Hot Ones. It's an interview show where they interview celebrities while eating hot wings at the same time.
See, they're buffalo wings. Yeah, hot wings.
All right,
You guys.
Okay,
You
so
guys
you're
outside of Buffalo.
you're from Buffalo, the land of buffalo wings. Are you telling me that you're not familiar with this Hot One series?
Maybe I've watched it, but no, not really.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm sending you a link.
Buffalo wings in Buffalo
you
are
gotta
just
watch it.
ubiquitous. They're just everywhere.
Yeah,
they are literally
Buffalo wings
everywhere.
and hot wings. Buffalo wings and hot wings are two different things.
Are they?
Yes, like
Okay, if
I'm
they
not-
are, then
I'm
somebody
not
back me
Buffalo,
up here.
we don't have hot wings then.
no. Well, hot wings are more a lot.
Oh, lost George.
And George's internet connection is getting the best of it.
I'm not familiar with hot wings.
Okay. Not familiar. Oh, okay. All right.
What are hot wings versus buffalo wings? We just
I'm
have
not-
wings.
Yeah, sorry guys.
I'm not educated enough to
So-
be able to say what the difference is.
Literally every single corner.
So, okay, tell me this.
Go ahead.
All right, I got a question for you, there, Scott, about wings. So the traditional wing sauce, how is that made?
Generally,
I guess that's the question.
it's Frank's and
I know
butter.
people put butter in that. What do you say? What in butter?
It's generally Frank's hot sauce and butter.
Okay. And that's like the standard wing in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean,
Because,
but
like, I have a place by-
there's thousands of variations on that. But yeah, the base. If you're going to Anchor Bar, the place that invented buffalo wings, you're getting Frank's hot sauce and butter.
Okay. That's good to know because the place that holds our monthly meetings, they do buffalo wings once a week, and I watched them. I watched them make the sauce, and they put Frank's in there, they put butter, and then they put whatever pepper or whatever else they're adding to it.
It's got to be cayenne pepper, but yeah,
So
I'm in. There's literally from my house.
Well, like
I'm not trying to brag, but for real, from my house here, without walking a mile away, there's 7 places to get good buffalo wings.
Wow.
All
All right. That's kind of like trying to get.
Every corner there's a pizzeria. Every pizzeria has wings. Every just place in Buffalo has wings. I feel weird saying it because you feel like there's not the one place that you would go to in Buffalo to get wings. Everybody has their favorite wing place.
Well,
it's hard to overstate.
Guys, Matt needs to run here shortly, so
sorry, Matt.
As a quick wrap up here, Matt, do you have anything you want to? Well, that's good. Do you have anything you want to plug at the brewery real quick?
Question before Matt gets out.
Yeah, ask away, Paulie.
So, you're obviously like the beer makes it out of Oregon, like Logston and a few of the other ones that I know of. Are there any other hidden gems where I should try and look out for if I ever see them get distributed into our area? Like, just regular beers like IPAs or something like that. Because I know the few places out there, but
right.
I'm asking about
from the Northwest, from Oregon, Washington, in our area. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, it's always so hard to answer that question well, only because we have so many beer drinkers here, and every state does now. But a lot of the best breweries don't distribute very far outside of Oregon, or at least the Northwest. But certainly you've got Logsden, which those guys are friends of mine too, which is awesome. I'm certain you can get Cascade, and I love those guys. Their beers are better than they've ever been. So those are 2 breweries making a lot of wild and sour barrel-aged beers. Other than that, I'm trying to think who would be in the Midwest that I would know about here. So much is drank in our state and in our region that it's hard to say, oh, you got to get these guys, that guy. I hope that you'll be able to get Alesong soon. That's my hope. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime real soon, but I know there's people who would buy Elson here.
But
oh god, yeah, we got a distributor for you too. So.
I know you do.
And they can be bought now through the gift boxes that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, you can definitely and yeah, I would plug the club. It's alesongbrewing.com/join. There are some Illinois members right now, and like I said, it's just buying bottles of beer at 10% discount. So it's a pretty good deal. You can find all about it on our website. And I also want to say hi to Matt and Eric because I just figured out how to see the live comments, and those 2 guys are watching. They're friends from Flossmoor.
Very cool. Very cool. You guys are on all the social major social medias also?
Yep. Facebook and Instagram. We don't do much Twitter, but you can also find Alesong Matt on all 3 of those places. So I don't do it as much as I should, but Alesong Brewing, Alesong Matt is where you'll find us on the socials.
Very cool. Very cool. Alesongbrewing.com. For one last time to check out the beers, check out the pictures of the brewery, and also the gift boxes that we talked about here on the episode. Matt, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
it was great. It was great meeting with you over the webcast like this, and wish you guys all the best.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate being here. And it's great seeing Paulie again. I miss you, buddy. And there will be a vaccine. You will see me at some point. We will have a beer together, all of you. I promise. There will be a time we'll drink a beer together.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, guys. I got to run.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. Have a good night.
Nice seeing you.
Yep, you bet. Cheers.
Buddy.
Cheers.
Okay. So long, everyone.
See ya. Okay, and we're going to close out the show now. Check us out on our website at www.aniceplacetobrew.com, on all the major social medias at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nice Place to Brew and A Nice Place to Brew. We do the webcast here every Monday and Thursday throughout the quarantine at 6 p.m. Central and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and all the major podcasting platforms. We have 40 plus episodes. Check us out. Give us a like. Give us a comment. Keep in touch with us on social media, and check out for our future webcasts and future episodes. Thank you so much for joining us. As we raise a glass before we end each show. Paulie?
I'm empty.
What?
I'm empty. Fuck.
All
Hold on. Give me 2 seconds.
right. Okay, here.
All
I'm gonna wait for him.
Hold on. No.
All right, go on.
I said we're waiting.
Oh yeah. And for the record, most of the time when we do this, my internet cooperates.
Oh,
I'm
he's
not
got a
even
growler. Oh, why didn't you say so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chug it.
No, growler from Blue Island. I'm just gonna go ahead and here we go. Cheers, guys.
Oh, just straight out of the growler. Okay.
Straight out of the growler.
All right.
It takes a lot of good beer to make great beer. Cheers.
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 Well, that's one way to end an episode.